Two, one, you're live.
Today is a momentous moment for everyone, especially for our students and the parents who work hard and persevere for the past 10 years, 10 months. But before we proceed, Halima Shakamara, may I extend my greetings to our distinguished guests and DepEd officials, to our guest of honor and speaker to be introduced later on, our Division School Superintendent Officer in Charge, Dr. Ellie S. Bugallon, and my greetings, our OIC Assistant Skills Division Superintendent officials, Madam Maria Crisella, to our guest of honor and speaker, our Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, our Division Dr. Superintendent Officer in Charge, Dr. Ellie, our public
Binawasan ko yung
schools district supervisor,
binawasan ko
Dr.
yung mic ko.
Bernardita F. Bautista, to our principal, Dr. Joseph Vision. Okay na, kahit
Lalagay mo
nakikita.
yung pa kasi okay yan. Ako naman, ang ating
Dr. Jonathan R. Estrada, our public
binawasan
the
ko
head
yung
teacher of BNSC IT Department,
mic ko.
Dr. Joey C. Bautista, and our master principal, Madam Okay na, kahit
Lalagay mo yung pa
to
kasi okay
supportive
yan.
and
Ako
hardworking
naman, ang
parents,
ating
Dr. Jonathan R. Estrada, completed
binawasan ko
students,
yung
teachers of BNSC, teachers, friends, okay na ba? And then, our master principal,
mic. Binawasan ko yung mic ko. Na inalis ko yung streaming. Kaganyan. Nagaganyan. Na inalis ko yung streaming. Ayan ma'am, pag kaganyan. Hindi, mali yung nagaganyan. Na inalis ko yung streaming. Ayan ma'am, pag salit kaganyan. Hindi, mali yung na inalis ko yung streaming. Ayan ma'am, pag salit kaganyan. Hindi, mali yung na inalis ko yung streaming. Ayan ma'am, pag kaganyan. Hindi, mali yung na inalis ko yung streaming. Ayan ma'am, pag kaganyan. Hindi, mali yung na inalis ko yung streaming. Pag yung sa video na yun, ayan ma'am, pag hindi ba nagbago ng kwan? Hindi ako nagbago.
Punta kayo sa page naman, tignan niyo yung live.
Nag-feedback lang ba sa akin? Kaya gano'n ang sabi.
Oo. Pag manonood kayo kung ano yung live, punta kayo sa page na. Tignan niyo kung ano yung live. Wala.
I-send ko na lang yung link. Pero hindi ako nagbago ng link eh. Pinapost-post ko lang. Wait lang, friend. Ito ay ang kunin. Ay, yung ibibili sa market. Try nyo nga ito Ayan, try nyo nga yan. Sana si Beng, naririnig mo, Beng? Doon sa may group sa link, ay sa GC. Sa GC. Sa GC. May bago akong binigay. Iskiri. Nandyan na, kakasend ko lang. Try nyo nga ito Ay, wait lang, si Sir Geoffrey pala pinag-send. Ayan, try nyo nga yan. Total. Talantin. Si Sir, paki-feed na lang ito. Masakit ulo ko. Mag-live lang po sa the presentation of academic and computers. Good luck, Van. Kaya-kayang to. Yung video lang nila. Hindi ko na napalitan yun Stream ko lang. Para hindi na papalitan. Ang kailangan Ayan, try nyo nga yan. Sana si Beng, naririnig mo, Beng? Doon sa may group sa link, ay sa GC. Sa GC. Sa GC. May bago akong binigay. Iskiri. Nandyan na, kakasend ko lang. Try nyo nga ito wait lang, si Sir Geoffrey pala pinag-send. Ayan, try nyo nga yan. Total. Talantin. Hindi mo, wait lang. Racer ka. Kasi ang hindi ko maano yung si Sir, paki-feed na lang ito. Masakit ulo ko. Mag-live lang po sa the presentation of academic and computers. Good luck, Van. Kaya-kayang to. Yung video lang nila. Hindi ko na napalitan yun Stream ko lang.
Erica M. Rites, FL, Read Honors. Elsa, Johnny C. Waiton, FLB Makasi, Read Honors.
Ayan, try nyo nga yan.
Baltazar Julian Pauline B. Grade 10, FLB Makasi, Lead Honors. Magdawe Cristel M. FL Grade 10, B Makasi, with High Honors.
Ayan. Halika. May sinend akong bago dun sa'yo. Halika. Sa'yo, Joffrey. Sana si Bane, naririnig mo, Bane? Doon sa may doon sa link. Ay, sa GC. Sa GC. Sa GC. May bago akong binigay. Iskara, iskuri, iskiri-kiri. Nandyan na, kakasend ko lang. Ayan, try nyo nga ito. Ay, wait lang, si Sir Joffrey pala pinasend. Ayan, try nyo nga yan. Total. Talented. Ayos yung kasi ang hindi ko maano yung ni si Sir, paki-feed na lang ito. Masakit ulo ko. Mag-live lang po sa the presentation of academic at computers. Good luck, Van. Kaya mo to. Yung video lang din.
Grade 10, P. Shona, with Honors.
Hindi ko na nakalitan eh. Stream ko lang.
Arvar Erica M.
Ay, on. Pwede siyang ano dyan, pupunta ng monitoring dyan. Ayan, determine fee ng monitoring. Or kay Jet na lang natin ang ipasok kasi siya galing sa Jet na to. Kay Jet mo na lang ipasok. Sige. Pwede siyang ano dyan, pupunta ng monitor. Bakit ang mga monitor sa dali? Ano nga lang po? Ayan, determine fee ng monitoring. Or kay Jet na lang natin ang ipasok kasi siya galing sa Jet na to. Kay Jet mo na lang ipasok. Ayan, determine fee ng monitoring. Pasok ng ilaw. Or kay Jet na lang natin ang ipasok.
Yes.
Galing sa Jet na to. Kay Jet mo na lang ipasok.
Hello.
Ayan, determine fee ng monitoring. Pasok ng ilaw. Or kay Jet na lang natin ang ipasok.
Yes.
Galing sa Jet na to.
Na-admit.
Kay Jet mo na lang ipasok.
Inhale. Hello. Inhale. Yes.
Hello.
Determine fee ng monitoring. Pasok ng
Lang
ilaw.
lang sir.
Or kay Jet na lang natin ang ipasok.
Yes. Oh my God. Na-admit.
Kay Jet mo na lang ipasok.
Inhale. Hello. Inhale. Yes.
Hello.
Determine fee ng monitoring. Pasok ng ilaw.
Lang sir.
Or kay Jet na lang natin ang ipasok.
Yes. Oh my God. Na-admit.
Kay Jet mo na lang ipasok.
Inhale. Hello. Inhale. Alin sa na mensahe po? Yung gabi mo ni JL, sir? Ayan, yung alin sa na mensahe po? Yung gabi mo ni JL, sir? Ayan, yung sana, sir. Sana po.
Today is a momentous moment for everyone, especially for our students and parents who work hard and persevere for the past 10 months. But before we proceed, may I extend my greetings to our distinguished guests and debit officials present this morning. To our division schools superintendent officer in charge, Dr. Ellie S. Obado, our OIC Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Madam Maria Griselda G. Ocam, our Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Justado I. Calabia, our Public Schools District Supervisor, Dr. Bernardita F. Bautista, to our Principal, Dr. Jonathan R. Estrada, to our Head Teacher, Dr. Geoffrey C. Diaz, and to our Master Teacher, Madam Editha T. Soriano, to the supportive and hard-working parents, the candidates for completion, students, teachers, friends, and everyone watching right now, a pleasant day to one and all, and welcome to Bugallon Integrated School Junior High School Department Completion Rites, the virtual ceremonies. Although we live in an unprecedented, extraordinary time, what the younger generation or the students have gone through for the past years brought them unique life experiences and valuable lessons that will help them, especially to attain their full potential, to reach for their dreams, and to become better and productive individuals in our society. Though the future is still uncertain, and there are times that your plan don't go your way, remember what God said on Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can endure all these things through the power of the one who gives me strength. With that, let us all rise for the singing of our national anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang inilang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bagaw, ay hinatang tula, tawid sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay di magtitinig, luma ng araw ng warhabit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo, ang hinigaya na pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
A moment of silence for the opening prayer to be led by Maria Teresa V. Maligay. Let us sing as one the regional hymn to be followed right away by our division hymn.
Mountains and the rivers, through the plains and winding trails, to the shores where breezes linger. That's the place I love so well. It's the home of men who love her, men who died to keep us free. Never told no bad the weather, that we want will never be. Region 1, oh Region 1, there's no better place I see. Region 1, oh Region 1, the rest all my part to me. From her care I learn my lessons, in her veils I work and pray. She has kept me safe and happy as I live on day by day. Though to other lands I wander, as I search for wealth and fame, in my heart I will remember Region 1, beloved name. Region 1, oh Region 1, there's no better place I see. Region 1, oh Region 1, the rest of my heart to me. Other lands I wander, as I search for wealth and fame. In my heart I will remember Region 1, beloved name. Region 1!
Makes us all proud to be one. Rebuilding currencies our stand. Empower our dearest land. In our heart is a delight. Make our children's future bright. Together for the dreams we fight. As each holds faith to God so tight. We still one. Serve with pride and unity. Still one Pangasinan, public service at its finest, right there to bring out the best and stand out among the rest. Share kindness for the nature that our children will treasure. Where they live a brighter future and make our dreams a nurture. Still one Pangasinan, still one, you are the one. Anchor of every child's journey, maker of bright destiny. Embrace culture with dignity. Work with goodwill and harmony. Honesty and sincerity. Serve with pride and unity. There's still one Pangasinan. There's still one, you are the one.
Pangasinan nga binabli, daan mo taniya ligwas, liwragod ko lawas. Yan puso Pangasinan, agkanalingwanan, luyak kuya niya nagan, bedegdakan yaman. Mantuan nalikwas muna kaya nenggelam, kasih paluring mapula, say pangkakasakti na kay nalilik na, labot ka na mabresika. Say dayak mundak na'y natuktan sa yaman, sagdan na kapalan ngayon, karunan tan samping mo Pangasinan, oriental lawas bantayan, lawas takal ikang duro Pangasinan, arun kakal bayukuan, anang apupong wala na bangunan, ikikinun ko siyo paman, Pangasinan luyang minatyawan.
Here now to deliver the welcome message. Ladies and gentlemen, a virtual applause for Miss Janelle S. Castro with high honors.
To our distinguished guest of honor and speaker who will be introduced later on, our OIC of the Division of the Division School Superintendent, Madam Ellie S. Ubaldo, our OIC Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Madam Criselda G. Ocang, our Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Jusdado I. Cayabyab, our Public Schools District Supervisor, Dr. Bernardita R. Bautista, to our more than outstanding principal, Dr. Jonathan R. Strada, to the one and only head teacher of Bugallon Integrated School Junior High School Department, Dr. Geoffrey C. Diaz, our master teacher, Madam Edita T. Soriano, parents, fellow candidates for completion, teachers, friends, and all of you who are watching right now. A pleasant morning to one and all. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change." This COVID-19 pandemic has turned the world upside down and had a significant impact on everyone. During the pandemic, we all realized how fragile normalcy is, that in a blink of an eye, the entire world can change, and what you had previously taken for granted no longer applies. This has been a particularly difficult period for many students, including ourselves. Our experience with COVID was extremely difficult. We have also witnessed society's struggle to react and to adjust to the new normal. Education could only follow the same path. Despite the fact that completely new and unknown educational forms were rapidly introduced to everyone, from face-to-face classes to modular and online classes, we were able to demonstrate the adaptability and perseverance that our time demands in order to achieve our ultimate goal. I know that most of us struggled to keep up with distance learning because everything was new to us. However, I'm so proud of all of us because we overcame our difficulties and our efforts were not in vain. Life is a journey, and all accomplishments along the way should be viewed as stepping stones to greater ones. But this is not the end, it is rather a beginning of a new, perhaps even more exciting and unpredictable journey that will lead to the next step. I consider myself fortunate to have met you all and to be the part of the strong bond we've formed. Fellow graduates, I've known you for a long time, and I know that each of you has something unique to offer. You are all creative and smart in a variety of ways. So please, never doubt yourself. And I'm hoping to see you all concur in life in your own unique way. And this ceremony has already proved how capable we are of achieving our goals, no matter how difficult and challenging they were. And I'm really hoping that we all stay in touch. Moreover, I'd like to thank our God Almighty for keeping us safe and sound, and for all we have. And please help us not to waste the amazing opportunities you place before us, and give us courage to pick ourselves up and get started again. I'd also like to express my gratitude towards my precious parents. My parents aren't rich, but they've always found a way to make sure I have everything I needed or wanted. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful. I'm fortunate enough for the education I received, as well as the sacrifices and efforts my parents made. I've always worked hard to keep my grades up and to be a consistent honor student because it's my only way to justify my parents' sacrifices and hard works. Mama and Papa, thank you for your unconditional selflessness, your unwavering support, your countless sacrifices that have opened many doors for me to grow and to succeed, and for all the things you have taught me along the way. Any success I've had has been the direct result of the work ethics and values you both instilled in me at a young age. And I'm excited to take those lessons with me as I begin the next chapter. I hope I make you as proud as you make me. Ma, Pa, I want you to know that I choose you both to be my parents again and again as my next lifetime, without a pause, without a doubt, and in a blink of an eye. I'll pick you both because you're the most precious gift I've ever received. Also, thanks to my close friends, especially the one who's always there for me when I needed someone to just listen, and for walking with me when I needed guidance. Thanks for walking with me when I needed support, and for walking behind me when I needed someone to watch my back. True friends are like diamonds, precious and rare, and you, my dear, is the most sparkling gem of them all. You will always have a special place in my heart. I'd also like to thank everyone who is part of this school. To our very supportive principal, Sir Jonathan Strada, and to the Bugallon Integrated School faculty and staff who are working around the clock to put in place the alternative learning strategies to ensure our ability to complete our work and to meet our academic goal. You all have helped shape us into the people you see today, and I can say in total confidence that without you all, we would have become very different. Once again, thank you everyone from the bottom of my heart. Lastly, the most important thing I learned in high school was to believe in yourself and to lean on others when necessary. There's another more important side to that idea, and it's the piece of advice I'd like to give you all as we near the chapter of the end. Nobody knows you better than you know yourself. Accept, be, and love yourself. And also make sure you're reachable when others need someone to lean on. Go out there and be bold. Work hard to complete the task. Face your fears. And always remember that you are a work in progress. Strive for more than you think is possible and reach for the stars. Congratulations to all of us. On behalf of Bugallon Integrated School, thank you and welcome to our virtual 2021 completion rites. Mabuhay and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Janelle. You have set the tone, and now we are ready to be inspired as we watch and listen to the messages of our DepEd officials. Now, here is Mrs. Jolajin C. Tenorio, a grade 10 advisor for the introduction of our guest of honor and speaker. Good day, everyone. It is my greatest pride and honor to introduce to you our guest of honor speaker in today's second virtual completion rites for this school year 2020-2021. He was born on November 25, 1995, third son of six children of his proud parents, Mr. Marvin and Mrs. Pina Ramos. He is currently residing at Cervantes Street, Poblacion, Bugallon, Pangasinan. In his elementary, he studied at Torres Bugallon Elementary School from 2002 to 2008. Then, in his secondary level, he studied at Bugallon Integrated School from 2008 to 2012. Yes, indeed, my friends. He and his batchmate were the second batch of graduates in our school. He took up Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Filipino, at Pangasinan State University, Lingayen Campus, from 2012 to 2016. During his high school and college days, he used to be a member of Knights of the Altar at St. Andrew the Apostle Parish to serve God and to earn confidence before the crowd. With a desire to help his parents and siblings, he immediately applied for a job after graduation in college. And luckily,
He was hired at Jason School Incorporated from 2016 to 2017 and at St. Columbus School Incorporated in Labrador from 2017 to 2018. After 2 years of teaching at private schools, he decided to apply for a teaching position in his alma mater at Bugallon Integrated School as he wanted to educate the young minds in his locality and work with his previous advisors and teachers who greatly helped and inspired him to where he is now. He became the co-advisor in BIS school paper, Anagaw, and now he is an advisor of grade 7. Our guest of honor speaker has a great fervor and passion in teaching, and he wanted to make a difference in lives of his students. That's why, to grow professionally and effectively, he is currently taking up Master of Education major in Filipino at Colegio de Dagupan. In his life's journey at the age of 25, he lives with his maxim. Successful men and women keep moving. They make mistakes, but they don't quit. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome the pride of Bugallon Integrated School, our guest of honor speaker, one student, and now teacher, Sir Melvin. Let's give him a big round.
Maligayang pagtatapos sa inyo, mga minamahal kong mag-aaral. Mag-aaral na nabibilang sa katangi-tanging batch 2021. Natatangi sapagkat kayo ay nagsipagtapos sa panahon ng isang pandemya, sa panahon ng new normal, na kahit hindi kayo namalagi sa loob ng ating paaralan, ay buong husay at tapang ninyong hinarap ang lahat ng hamon at matagumpay kayong nagsipagtapos. Totoo nga nakakaiba ngayon ang mga graduation ceremony sa ating bansa. Subalit hindi man ninyo naranasan ang mga kabang-abang na tradisyon tulad ng pagsusot ng toga at pag-akyat sa mismong entablado habang kinukuha ang diploma at medalya, kayo naman ay mga tunay pa rin na mga graduate at ngayon ay alumni na ng Bugallon Integrated School. Taus-puso pa rin nating ipinagdiriwang ang okasyong ito at pinasasalamatan natin ang lahat ng ating mga nakasama sa makabuluhang paglalakbay na ito. Pasasalamat sa inyong mga magulang at mga guro na umagapay sa inyo sa pag-aaral at pagbibigay ng edukasyon sa kabila ng pandemyang ating kinakaharap. Ako nga pala si Ginoong Melvin D. Ramos. Mag-aral lamang noon sa paaralang ito at ngayon ay isa ng matagumpay na guro at 3 taon nang nagtuturo sa paaralan din ito. Ipinagmamalaki kong isa ako sa mga naging produkto ng Bugallon Integrated School. Lubos ang aking pasasalamat sa mga naging guro ko sa paaralan na ito, sapagkat sila ang isa sa mga humubog at nagbigay sa akin ng inspirasyon na maging bahagi sa pagbibigay ng kaalaman at edukasyon sa mga kabataan. Marahil ang iba'y nagtataka kung bakit ako'y naging isang guro sa kabila ng taglay kong pagkamahiyain. Oo, mahiyain ako dati. Tanda ko pa, noong ako'y high school pa lamang sa paaralan na ito. Ako yung tipong estudyante na tahimik lamang sa loob ng silid-aralan. Hindi gumagawa ng kalokohan. Kaya hindi mo talaga akalain na magiging guro ako. Dahil sabi nga nila, pag guro ka, dapat madaldal ka. Takot ako noon magsalita sa harap ng klase at sa harap ng maraming tao. Pero nilabanan ko ito dahil na rin sa pangarap ko na maging isang mahusay na guro na gaya ng aking mga naging guro sa BIS. Kung kaya, sinipagan ko na mag-aral. Nakapagtapos ako ng pag-aaral dahil sa aking pananalig at pagsisikap. Sa tulong na rin ng inspirasyon mula sa aking mga guro at magulang. Hindi madaling umapak sa kolehiyo, lalo isa kang mahirap na mamamayan. Ngunit dahil sa aking pagsisikap, pananalig at inspirasyon, nakamit ko ang tagumpay. Nakuha ko ang inasam ko na diploma. Sa tuwing nakikita ko ang aking diploma ay bumabalik sa aking gunita ang mga hirap na aking naranasan. Hirap at sakripisyo rin ng aking mga magulang. Tanda ko pa, 50 pesos lamang ang baon ko kada isang araw. Kasama na roon ang pamasahe, tanghalian, at mga bayarin sa loob ng classroom tulad ng contribution sa group projects at group activities, pagpapaputo copy ng mga kinakailangang handout sa mga subjects, at sa kung ano-ano pang bayarin. Pinagkakasya ko ang baon ko na 50 pesos. Minsan, hindi na rin ako nakakapagtanghalian dahil sa kakapusan ng budget at iniisip ko kung may matitira pang pamasahe pa uwi. Kapag hindi ako nakapagtanghalian, umiinom na lang ako ng maraming tubig upang maibsan ang gutom at makabalik pa sa loob ng eskwelahan. Minsan din ay nahuhuli sa pagbabayad ng tuition fee dahil sa kakapusan. Humahanap pa ng mauutangan para lang makapag-exam. Ganyan kahirap ang naranasan ko habang ako'y nag-aaral. Ngunit hindi ako sumuko dahil nakikita ko ang sakripisyo ng aking mga magulang upang matustusan ang aming mga pangangailangang magkakapatid. Hindi sila sumuko. Nakikita ko ang hirap at pagod ng aking ama sa pagkakayod. Kaya binuon ko sa aking isipan na pagsisikapan ko ang aking pag-aaral. Pagsisikapan ko makatapos sa pag-aaral at makamit ang aking mga pangarap upang makaganti rin ako sa aking mga magulang. May balik ang lahat ng sakripisyong ginawa nila para sa amin. At ngayon, heto ako. Nakamit ang pangarap, isa ng guro, at patuloy pa rin na tutuparin ang aking mga pangarap sa tulong ng edukasyon. Bakit ko sinasabi ang mga bagay na ito? Ngayong taon, ang tema ng araw ng pagtatapos ay kalidad ng edukasyon lalong patatagin sa gitna ng pandemya. Pinapaalalahanan tayo na napakalaking tulong ang edukasyon sa atin, lalo na sa kinakarap nating malaking hamon. Gaano man kahirap ang pag-aaral ngayon, gumagawa pa rin ng paraan ang mga guro na may pabot sa mga mag-aral ang edukasyon. Gayon din ang mga mag-aral na nagsusumikap para matuto. Tulad ko, hindi ako sumuko. Nagsumikap akong mag-aral kahit maraming mga hadlang na dumating. Naalala ko ang sinabi ng isa kong guro dito sa Bugallon Integrated School. Sabi niya, mahirap maging mahirap, pero mas mahirap kung patuloy kang maghihirap dahil wala kayong ginawa. Tama nga naman, gawin ninyong inspirasyon ang nararanasan ninyong hirap. Ibaon ninyo sa inyong isipan na balang araw ay makakamtan nyo rin ang inyong mga pangarap, na makakaahon rin kayo sa kahirapan sa tulong ng edukasyon. Edukasyon nga ay hindi humihinto sa kabila ng pandemya ang ating kinakarap sa ating bansa. Kayo pa kaya? Huwag kayong huminto, laban lang, kapit lang. Tandaan na pwede kayong mapagod, pwede kayong umiyak, pero bawal kayong sumuko. Gamitin sana ninyo ng wasto ang mga karunungang iniwan sa inyo ng ating paaralan, ang tatak BIS. Huwag ninyong kalilimutan ang mga gintong aral na natutunan ninyo mula sa inyong mga guro. Naway baunin ninyo ito sa panibago ninyong paglalakbay. Muli, binabati ko kayo sa makasaysayan at makabuluhang okasyong ito. Maligayang pagtatapos, Batch 2021.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramos, for those inspiring words that you shared us. You are indeed a testament of the quality of education that BIS provides to all the learners. I am sure that all the students watching right now are more inspired to work harder for their dreams. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, let us witness the awarding of the Certificate of Appreciation to our guest of honor and speaker by our principal, Dr. Estrada, our head teacher, Dr. Diaz, and our grade 10 chairperson, Mrs. Bernadette V. Mangasi. And may I read the text? Republic of the Philippines, Department of Education, Region 1, Schools Division Office 1 of Pangasinan, Lingayen, Pangasinan, Bugallon Integrated School. Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Mr. Melvin D. Ramos, LPT, in grateful appreciation for his auspicious contribution and inspiration as a guest of honor and speaker during the virtual completion rites 2021 held via online platform with the theme Kalidad ng Edukasyon Patatagin sa Gitna ng Pandemya. Given this 40th day of July 2021 at Bugallon Integrated School, Bugallon, Pangasinan. Signed, Bernadette V. Manasi, Grade 10 Chairman. Signed, Geoffrey C. Diaz, Doctor of Education, Head Teacher 1. And signed, Jonathan R. Estrada, Doctor of Education, Principal 2. Once again, thank you and resounding applause to Mr. Melvin Ramos. Also to our principal, Dr. Estrada, our head teacher, Dr. Diaz, and our chairman, Madam Bernadette Mamasi. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, let us lend our ears to the message and presentation of the candidates for completion by our school head, none other than Dr. Jonathan R. Estrada.
Sa ating mahal na panauhing pandangal, sa ating napakasipag na tagapamanihala ng SDU1 Pangasinan, Dr. Ellie S. Ubaldo, sa ating mahuhusay na pangalawang tagapamanihala, Dr. Maria Criselda Ocang at Dr. Diosdado Cayabyab, ang ating ina at napakabuting tagamasid pampurog ng unang distrito ng Bugallon, Dr. Bernardita F. Bautista, mga masisipag at mapagmahal na tagapayo at guro ng Bugallon Integrated School, mga magulang, at sa ating mga mahuhusay na completer sa panuruang taon 2020-2021, mga kaibigan, magandang araw po sa ating lahat. Isang taus-puso at mapagpalang pagbati ang ipinapaabot ko sa lahat ng mga magsisipagtapos sa panuruang taon 2021 ng Bugallon Integrated School. Ang inyong tagumpay ay bunga ng pagpupunyagi, sipag at determinasyon, patunay ang mga natatanging karangalan at pagtatagumpay sa makabagong modalidad ng pag-aaral. Kaakibat ng tagumpay na ito, hindi mapapantayan ang naging kontribusyon ng inyong mga magulang, ng mga miyembro ng pamilya, ng komunidad, at higit sa lahat, ng inyong mga masisipag na guro. Aming nasaksihan ang inyong pagpapahalaga sa pag-aaral sa kabila ng napakalaking hamon ng makabagong normal ng edukasyon. Napagtagumpayan ninyo ito dahil sa mahusay na pananaw, daan upang maabot ang inyong pangarap. Dama namin ang inyong hirap, pagod, ngayon ay tuwa't saya habang napagtatagumpayan ang mga iba't ibang paraan ng pag-aaral sa loob ng inyong tahanan. Dahil dito, kaming mga guro't kawani ng paaralang ito ay nabibigyang inspirasyon para lalong magsumikap na gampanan ang aming mga tungkulin at pahalagahan ang bawat isa sa inyo, mga mahal naming mag-aaral. Ang tema, kalidad ng edukasyon, lalong patatagin sa gitna ng pandemya, ay magsisilbing paalala sa inyong nakaatang na responsibilidad, hindi lang sa inyong sarili, kundi sa inyong mga kapwa mag-aaral na walang dapat naiiwan sa kabila ng napakabigat na hamon ng kasalukuyang panahon. Higit sa lahat, ang pagkilala sa kahusayan, pinagsamang tulungan at pagsisikap ng inyong mga guro, magulang, mamamayan at ang pamunuan ng Bugallon Integrated School
para maisakatuparan ang pag-abot ng kalidad, mahusay at mapagpalayang edukasyon para sa lahat. Kaya sa pagtungtong ninyo sa senior high school, sana lalong madagdagan ang inyong pagsusumikap at paghahangad sa pag-abot ng inyong mga pangarap. Kaya't huwag paghinaan ng loob sa pagtahak ng inyong mga naisin sa buhay dahil nandyan palaging nakaantabay ang ating amang dakila at ang inyong mga masugid na tagahanga at tagasuporta, ang inyong mga magulang. Ang aking malugod na pagpupugay sa lahat ng completers. Hangad ko lagi ang inyong tagumpay.
Our guest of honor and speaker, Sir Melvin Ramos. Our officer in charge, Office of the Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Ellie S. Ubaldo. Our Assistant Schools Division Superintendents, Dr. Maria Priscilla G. Okang and Dr. Josdado I. Ayagel. Our Public Schools District Supervisor, Dr. Bernardita F. Bautista. As the principal, I, Jonathan R. Estrada, have the honor to present our strong and gifted academic excellence awardees and the candidates for completion of Bugallon Integrated School this school year 2020-2021. Composed of 102 smart and talented learners for our academic excellence awardees and 221 males with 213 females, with a total of 444 for our candidates for completion who have successfully completed all the requirements prescribed by the Department of Education for junior high school. I hereby recommend and humbly request the confirmation of our Public Schools District Supervisor, Dr. Bernardita F. Bautista. Ma'am, our academic excellence awardees and the candidates for completion gratefully await your confirmation. Thank you very much.
Now, for the confirmation of the candidates for completion, here is our Public Schools District Supervisor, Dr. Bernardita F. Bautista.
By the authority vested in me by the officer in charge, Office of the Schools Division Superintendent, and acting upon the recommendation of the school head, Dr. Jonathan R. Estrada, that you have successfully completed all prescribed requirements by Department of Education for junior high school. I, Bernardita Flores Bautista, Public Schools District Supervisor, confirms your graduation rights and declare you junior high school completers today. I therefore confer upon you all the rights and privileges thereto appertaining. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mom, and congratulations, students. You are now officially grade 10 completers. Let us proceed then to one of the highlights of today's celebration, the presentation of awardees. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the second virtual completion rites of Bugallon Integrated School High School Department.
Juliana Pauline B. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. Mangyao Crystal M. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. Maternal Patronage B. Grade 10, A. Arabo, with honors. R. Rico Jane E. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. Nimban Kia Joy P. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. Lapo Rochelle P. Grade 10, J. Palma, with honors. Buduan Angelica C. Grade 10, J. Palma, with honors. Bugarin Janelle M. Grade 10, A. Arabo, with honors. Bugallon Giselle D. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with high honors. Buduan Angelica C. Budlawan Ariel P. Grade 10, J. Tenorio, with honors. Kaligtan Michaela T. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. Cansino Anne Joy C. Grade 10, M. Chakson, with honors. Cansino Nicole Ann T. Grade 10, M. Parry, with honors. Castro Janelle S. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with high honors. Nathaniel Cholo John N. Grade 10, M. Parry, with honors. Juan Hannah Gray C. Grade 10, M. Chakson, with honors. Cruz Maria Teresa P. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. Wilson Romel L. Grade 10, A. Arevalo, with honors. Nador Rita C. Grade 10, A. Arevalo, with honors. Natanagan April M. Grade 10, J. Palma, with honors. De Guzman Alvin D. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. De Guzman Hennessy G. Grade 10, A. Arevalo, with honors. De Guzman Roshin B. Grade 10, K. Nadado, with honors. De Leon Robina M. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. Rivera Jolo Briggs P. Grade 10, G. J. Jacinto, with honors. Decano Nadine M. Grade 10, J. Palma, with honors. De la Cruz Eliza May B. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with honors. De la Cruz Gracia Isabel P. Grade 10, Alpha Lima Masi, with high honors. De la Cruz Becca Ella D. Grade 10, Aaron Parry, with honors. De los Santos Venice T. Grade 10, James Tenorio, with honors. Devon John Angelo P. Grade 10 D. Sagon with honors. Diaz Mark Joshua C. Grade 10 E. Estrada with honors. Espinosilia Juliana Marie D. Grade 10 FLB Mangasi with honors. Esperanza Gabriel Jose S. Grade 10 FLB Mangasi with honors. Espinosa Dwight A13, grade 10, FLB Mangasi, with honors. Espinosa John Marie R, grade 10, FLB Mangasi, with honors. Espora Hannah M, grade 10, J. Palma, with honors. Estrada Brandon S. Grade 10, James Simpson, with honors. Estrada Christopher A. Grade 10, M. Thompson, with honors. Estrada Mark Henry P. Grade 10, FLB Mangasi, with honors. Kapitulanan Hannah V. Grade 10, Aaron Park, with honors. Fernandez Riza G. Grade 10, FLB Mangasi, with honors. Lawrence Aaron Christian, grade 10, FLB Mangasi, with honors. Lawrence Jenny S., grade 10, FLB Mangasi, with honors. Rhoda Georgina L., grade 10, K. Nadado, with honors. Rhoda Nicole Ann R., grade 10, A. Dam, with honors. Galera Jezebel F. Grade 10, A. Arnulfo, with honors. Garcia Jolan J. Grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with honors. Garcia William Charles C. Grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with high honors. Garingarao Jean C. Grade 10, F. Johnson, with honors. Murado Angelica G. Grade 10, A. Arabulon, with honors. Healing Robelin S. Grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with honors. Guzman Maria Ruth E. Grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with honors. Honda Andre B. Grade 10, K. Natalo, with honors. Labranas Prince Jolan F. Grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with honors. Lambino Mary Grace B. Grade 10, Aaron Park, with honors. Leoneta Angelica P. Grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with honors. Lumibaw Iya Angela, grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with honors. Lozano Joanna Marie C. Grade 10, K. Nadrado, with honors. Madrid Joanne C. Grade 10, Alpha B. Mangasi, with honors. Magat Rachel and I, grade 10, FLB Mangasi with honors. Maligdag Alessandra Antoinette S., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with high honors. Maligdag Maria Teresa B., grade 10, A. Maligdag with honors. Mandasi April K. B., grade 10, D. Sagan with honors. Managlang Rochelle C., grade 10, J. Tenorio with honors. Mahunay Lizelle B., grade 10, J. Tenorio with honors. Manzon Jonalyn G., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with honors. Mendoza Karen B., grade 10, E. Estrada with honors. Ordunia Yuri Charles S., grade 10, E. Estrada with honors. Ordunia Rizwan D., grade 10, A. Arevalo with honors. Oris Ariel Duen and grade 10, L. Jackson with honors. Osita James Adrian R., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with honors. Panlilio Hans Kizia P., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with honors. Panragio JUS, grade 10, F. Jackson with honors. Paulo Prisha Angela S., grade 10, A. Arevalo with honors. Peralta Trisha Nicole D., grade 10, L. Jackson with honors. Quejado Maria Clara Nicole, grade 10, K. Tado with honors. Kimura Monica D., grade 10, J. Jacinto with honors. Kisora Principe A., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with honors. Rairan John R. C., grade 10, A. Manindam with honors. Reception John Daniel F., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with honors. Rosario Angelica O., grade 10, A. Arevalo with honors. Rosario Marjorie O., grade 10, A. Arevalo with honors. Sampaga Kurt Lawrence J., grade 10, D. Sagon with honors. Sanchez Deville May E., grade 10, D. Sagon with honors. Season Azalea Shane B., grade 10, FLB Manasi with honors. Soriano Michelle B., grade 10, J. Jacinto with honors. Sorio Janine E., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with high honors. Tan Pinky L., grade 10, E. Estrada with honors. Untalang Ruela Marie C., grade 10, FLB Mangasi with honors. Valenton Norman G. Grayson J. Jacinto with honors. Adriao Jerry S. Grayson Aaron Parry with honors. Ballesteros Jaime P. Grayson Aaron Parry with honors. Rosel Mark Joshua Grayson FLB Makasi with honors. Victorio Jordan M. Grayson J. Jacinto with honors. Inoya Carlos J. Z. Grayson J. Jacinto with honors. Beray Jerlyn G. Grayson FLB Mangasi with honors. Yansa Joylyn B. Grayson FLB Mangasi with honors. And Zafra Mark Anthony D. Grayson L. Jackson with honors. Congratulations, students. Once again, you are watching the second virtual completion rites of Bugallon Integrated School Junior High School Department. At this juncture, let us break the monotony and witness a short presentation by the selected BIS students.
Smooth like butter, like a criminal undercover. Don't pop like trouble, breaking into your heart like that. Cool shade stunner, yeah, owe it all to my mother. High like summer, yeah, I'm making you sweat like that. Break it down. Ooh, when I look in the mirror, I'm not too hard to do. I got the superstar glow, so ooh, do the booty. A side step right left to my beat. I like the moon rock with me, baby. Know that I got that heat. Let me show you, cause God can see. Side step right left to my beat. Get it, let it roll. 200 and I'm better, ain't none of them hot, ain't none of them hot. Except for this pretty young thing that was working all the way at the top, all the way at the top. Shouted, what is her name? Ooh, she made us drinks to drink. We drunk and got drunk and man, I think she thinks I'm cool. She gave me a wink, I winked back, and man, I think that we hit it off something proper like. I like the bartender. Ooh, if you're looking for me, I'm at the bar with her. Okay. I like the bartender. Yeah, if you're looking for me, I'm at the bar with her. Okay. Got a brand new girl, so I'm feeling all good inside. I'm good inside. Feel like I put some brand new on the Hey, when it come to you, pistol like buzz, issue with trust. Won't let no one get a piece of your love. Yeah, base it on loyalty, base it on us. I ain't the picture perfect type, but I'm making it up. You say you want a bad flip it, I can't get enough. I'm with your love, but when I'm with you, I'm bitter as fuck. Forbidden fruit on apple juice, can I sip on the cup? Mix it with some 1942 and I'm beating you up. Girl, you chosen, fuck it up when you bust wide open. It's the ocean, I'm just imposing that you give it to me and just me only. Yeah, girl, you chosen. Fuck it up when you bust wide open. It's the ocean. I'm just imposing that you give it to me and just me only. Girl, you chosen. You're gonna be better than a King Sony. This my mother, then your skin start bleed. So you gotta.
Thank you, students. At this point, we have come to the much anticipated part of our completion rites, the presentation of the grade 10 completers by the respective advisors.
Here are the grade 10 FLB mga C completers. To start with, Balauza Johnny C., son of Mr. Edward N. Balauza and Mrs. Maria Lida C. Balauza. Esperanza Gabriel Jose S., son of Mr. Rafael C. Esperanza and Mrs. Jacqueline S. Esperanza. Espinoza Dwight Izer T., son of Mr. Robert F. Espinoza and Mrs. Eileen T. Espinoza. Estrada Mac Henley P., son of Mr. Henry F. Estrada and Mrs. Winnie P. Estrada. Flores Aaron Christian, son of Miss Julie G. Flores. Garcia William Charles C., son of Dr. Rogelio O. Garcia Jr. and Mrs. Aurelia C. Garcia. Leganas Prince Jolan F., son of Mr. Froilan C. Leganas and Mrs. Jasmine Joy F. Leganas. Oseta James Adrian R., son of Mr. Eduardo D. Oseta and Mrs. Leia R. Oseta. Reception John Daniel F., son of Mr. Rebel T. Reception and Mrs. Julie F. Reception. Gersel Mark Joshua, son of Mrs. Annabel V. Gabion. Abarabar Erica M., daughter of Mr. Edwin D. Abarabar and Mrs. Janice M. Abarabar. Baltazar Juliana Pauline B., daughter of Mr. Romulo V. Baltazar and Mrs. Ming B. Baltazar. Banlawe Cristel M., daughter of Mr. Crispin D. Banlawe and Mrs. Jovelyn M. Banlawe. Bihar Rika Jane E., daughter of Mr. Johnny A. Bihar and Mrs. Daisaline E. Bihar. Binban Kia Joy P., daughter of Mr. Armando B. Binban and Mrs. Annalyn P. Binban. Bugayong Giselle D., daughter of Mr. Jerry B. Bugayong and Mrs. Michelle D. Bugallon. Calicdan, Tina D., daughter of Mr. Terso P. Calicdan and Mrs. Raquel D. Calicdan. Castro Janelle S., daughter of Mr. Jimmy T. Castro and Mrs. Nelia S. Castro. Cruz Mary Neresa P., daughter of Mr. Raul B. Cruz Jr. and Mrs. Aidanet P. Cruz. De Guzman Albi D., daughter of Mr. Virgilio V. De Guzman and Mrs. Alma D. De Guzman. De Leon Rovena M., daughter of Mr. Rosano M. De Leon and Mrs. Ludovina M. De Leon. De la Cruz Eliza May V., daughter of Mr. Joel M. De la Cruz and Mrs. Irene V. Berian. De la Cruz Grisha Isabel P., daughter of Mr. Jose Dante N. De la Cruz and Mrs. Cristina P. De la Cruz. Espinosilia Juliana Marie D., daughter of Mr. Joel L. Espinosilia and Mrs. Helda D. Espinosilia. Espinoza Jean Marie R., daughter of Mr. Alano C. Espinoza and Mrs. Lilibet R. Espinoza. Fernandez Riza G., daughter of Mr. Rolando P. Fernandez and Mrs. Rosaline G. Fernandez. Flores Jenny S., daughter of Mr. Hercules B. Flores and Mrs. Jocelyn S. Flores. Garcia Jolan J., daughter of Mr. Joey F. Garcia and Mrs. Leonila J. Garcia. Gilling Robeline S., daughter of Mr. Roberto G. Gilling and Mrs. Quesaline S. Gilling. Guzman Maria Ruth E., daughter of Mr. Matthias A. Guzman and Mrs. Nella E. Guzman. Lianeta Angelica P., daughter of Mr. Herminio A. Lianeta and Mrs. Marilo P. Lianeta. Lumibao Iya Angela, daughter of Miss Marie L. Elomir. Madrid Joanne C., daughter of Mr. Antonio P. Madrid and Mrs. Gemma C. Madrid. Magat Rachel Ann I., daughter of Miss Rachel F. Inocencio. Malikdam Alessandra Antoinette S., daughter of Mr. Manuel C. Malikdam and Mrs. Sarah S. Malikdam. Manzon Jonalyn G., daughter of Mr. Joel S. Manzon and Mrs. Lolita G. Manzon. Panlilio Hans Kisha P., daughter of Mr. Rinaldo G. Panlilio and Mrs. Helen P. Panlilio. Kizora Christine May A., daughter of Mr. Michael S. Kizora and Mrs. Charlene A. Kizora. Season Azalea Shane P., daughter of Mr. Ricardo C. Season Jr. and Mrs. Priscilla P. Season. Sorio Janine E., daughter of Mr. Eduardo L. Sorio and Mrs. Marilu E. Sorio. Untalan Rowella Marie C., daughter of Mr. Roel Y. Untalan. Viray Jerlyn G., daughter of Mr. Jerry Bear E. Viray and Mrs. Charlene G. Viray. And last but not the least, Yanza Joylyn B., daughter of Mr. Lyndon B. Yanza and Mrs. Marvick E. Yanza. Congratulations! Here are the grade 10 A reparative completers, starting with Ariola Wally, son of Mrs. Rosemary O. Ariola. Balauza Julius G., son of Mr. Pablo C. Balauza and Mrs. Charily G. Balauza. Bernal Samson A., son of Mr. Jackson R. Bernal and Mrs. Sheila May Z. Bernal. Bugayong Ronron C., son of Mr. Ronnie F. Bugayong and Mrs. Lanilyn C. Bugayong. Cancino Alexander P., son of Mr. Romeo T. Cancino and Mrs. Francia P. Cancino. Katinggil Cholojan N., son of Mr. Juanito V. Katinggil and Mrs. Melissa N. Katinggil. De la Cruz Aldrin C., son of Mr. Sunny G. De la Cruz and Mrs. Brenda C. De la Cruz. De la Cruz Justin S., son of Mr. Jesse S. De la Cruz and Mrs. Mary Grace S. De la Cruz. Fernandez Bernal G., son of Mrs. Emerita D. Fernandez. Mejia Maloney Jr. B., son of Mr. Maloney L. Mejia Sr. and Mrs. Gemaline Gonzalo. Octit Jericho A., son of Mr. Armando V. Octit and Mrs. Belen A. Octit. Pastrana Aaron B., son of Mr. Jennifer P. Pastrana and Mrs. Armeda B. Pastrana. Refuerzo Jeffrey S., son of Mr. Prudencio E. Refuerzo Jr. and Mrs. Dolores S. Refuerzo. Reyes Florence Jr. F., son of Mr. Florence D. Reyes Sr. and Mrs. Malji F. Reyes. Salamat Jeffrens O., son of Mr. Jonald D. Salamat and Mrs. Raquel O. Salamat. Soriano Marcos C., son of Mr. Anastasio B. Soriano and Mrs. Maria Victoria C. Soriano. Susing Christian J., son of Mr. George M. Susing and Mrs. Creselda J. Susing. Valdez Rovic D., son of Mr. Rolando C. Valdez and Mrs. Marilyn D. Valdez. Valdez Wendell D., son of Mr. Edwin F. Valdez and Mrs. Jenaline D. Valdez. Valyao Jeric S., son of Mr. Naidis G. Valyao and Mrs. Alma S. Valyao. Valyao Von D., son of Mr. Noli D. Valyao and Mrs. Analisa D. Valyao. Valesteros Rastin J. U., son of Mr. Raul L. Valesteros and Mrs. Vilma U. Valesteros. Zaratan Lichorm Ben D., son of Mr. Roberto D. Zaratan and Mrs. Estela D. Zaratan. Abarabar Angelica Nicole S., daughter of Mr. Abraham G. Abarabar and Mrs. Nova S. Abarabar. Ariston Rose Ann G., daughter of Mr. Rodolfo A. Ariston and Mrs. Marites G. Ariston. Astorias Shara, daughter of Mr. Jackson R. Bernal and Mrs. Sheila May Z. Bernal. Cancino Nicole Ann T., daughter of Mr. Jesse O. Cancino and Mrs. Zenaida T. Cancino. Castro Catherine L. Guardian Mrs. Joleta L. Fernandez. Castro Darilyn S., daughter of Mr. Darmo T. Castro and Mrs. Jocelyn S. Castro. De Guzman Jelena P., daughter of Mr. Corleto V. De Guzman and Mrs. Loretta P. De Guzman. De la Cruz Micaela D., daughter of Mr. Romulo D. De la Cruz and Mrs. Riza D. De la Cruz. De la Cruz Rose Ann C., daughter of Mr. Samuel G. De la Cruz and Mrs. Maria Teresa C. De la Cruz. Fabicolanen Hannah V., daughter of Mr. Mario P. Fabicolanen and Mrs. Norma V. Fabicolanen. Gamba Jean S., daughter of Mr. Roderick S. Gamba. Garcia Irish Nicole S., daughter of Mr. Orlando B. Garcia Jr. and Mrs. Nelda S. Garcia. Lambino Mary Grace V., daughter of Mr. Antonio F. Lambino and Mrs. Evangeline V. Lambino. Ogdol Danica May A., daughter of Mr. Erwin M. Ogdol and Mrs. Resli A. Ogdol. Undoy Samantha A., daughter of Mr. Nelson N. Undoy and Mrs. Elsie A. Undoy. Tinyoso Natalie Shanil S., daughter of Mr. Roleto J. Tinyoso and Mrs. Geraldine R. San Antonio. Valyao Dayan P., daughter of Mr. Rex V. Valyao and Mrs. Mariel T. Valyao. Ballesteros Jaime May P., daughter of Mr. Henry L. Ballesteros and Mrs. Armida P. Ballesteros. Ballesteros Jayla D., daughter of Mr. Ronald L. Ballesteros and Mrs. Lailani D. Ballesteros. Congratulations! Grade 10 M. Changson completers. Cancino Efren T., son of Mr. Eduardo O. Cancino and Mrs. Mercedes T. Cancino. Castañeda Sammy O., son of Mr. Rolando Z. Castañeda and Mrs. Gloria O. Castañeda. Cruz Ismael R., son of Isagani C. Cruz and Winda R. Cruz. Quizon John Eric A., son of Mr. Manuel Quizon and Mrs. Cherry A. Quizon. Dador Jefferson C., son of Mr. Alberto is Dador and Mrs. Rhea C. Dador. De la Cruz Ruben Mark Angel G., son of Mr. Marlon M. De la Cruz and Mrs. Rosenda G. De la Cruz. Josai J. Lloyd N., son of Mr. Elmer A. Josai and Mrs. Marjorie N. Josai. Dumakit John Mark V., son of Mr. William C. Dumakit and Mrs. Hazel B. Dumakit. Estrada Christopher A., son of Mr. Pedro M. Estrada and Mrs. Jessica A. Estrada. Jordan Marvin B., son of Mr. Danilo D. Jordan and Mrs. Amparo B. Jordan. Malit Christopher C., son of Mr. Crisanto C. Malit and Mrs. Edna C. Malit. Malong John Paul D., son of Mr. Magnold J. Malong and Mrs. Desiree D. Malong. Orduña John Mark O., son of Mr. Bernie A. Orduña and Mrs. Bernadette O. Orduña. Ores Ariel Dwayne N., son of Mr. Ariel T. Ores and Mrs. Gloria N. Ores. Paramio J.O. S., son of Mr. Corleto A. Paramio and Mrs. Rubilida S. Paramio. Ramos Rostom B., son of Mr. Rodrigo S. Ramos and Mrs. Alma B. Ramos. Reyes Hero M., son of Mr. Titos T. Reyes and Mrs. Elisa M. Reyes. Reyes Jonathan A., son of Mr. Salvador C. Reyes and Mrs. Maria Arlene A. Reyes. Salazar Judel B., son of Mr. Joel R. Salazar and Mrs. Avelina B. Salazar. Soldao Jeremy Peter A., son of Mr. Edgardo L. Soldao and Mrs. Liza A. Soldao. Tihada Noli N., son of Mr. Nilo C. Tihada and Mrs. Marina N. Tihada. Zapra Mark Anthony D., son of Mr. Alan C. Zapra and Mrs. Julie D. Zapra. Bangkod Isakel Kincaid C., daughter of Mark Lester B. Bangkod and Mrs. Rachel C. Bangkod. Bugayong Jebron Ann A., daughter of Mr. Bonifacio F. Bugayong and Mrs. Vilma A. Bugayong. Kabway Sheni E., daughter of Mr. Anthony S. Kabway and Mrs. Blisila A. Kabway. Cancino Annie Joyce C., daughter of Mr. Edwin C. Cancino and Mrs. Janita C. Cancino. Karamat Sandara P., daughter of Mr. Percival F. Karamat and Mrs. Sharon P. Karamat. Sibat Hannah Grace C., daughter of Mr. Ahmad J. Sibat and Mrs. Teresita C. Sibat. Di Guzman Bea V., daughter of Mr. Marcelino P. Di Guzman Jr. and Mrs. Emily V. Di Guzman. De Guzman Maria Antoinette B., daughter of Mr. Tony M. De Guzman and Mrs. Susan B. De Guzman. Garingarao Jean C., daughter of Mr. Crisanto G. Garingarao Jr. and Mrs. Delia C. Garingarao. Judines Lera N., daughter of Mr. Riuni A. Judines and Mrs. Carolina N. Judines. Laureta Juliana May P., daughter of Mr. Loreto F. Laureta Jr. and Mrs. Shirley P. Laureta. Munda Altea S., daughter of Mr. Alfred R. Munda and Mrs. Evangeline S. Monda. Oksan Zarina May S., daughter of Mr. Christopher S. Oksan and Mrs. Jocelyn S. Oksan. Peralta Tricia Nicole D., daughter of Mr. Raimundo A. Peralta and Mrs. Marivic D. Peralta. Rivera Jasmine Claire A., daughter of Mr. Serafin D. Rivera and Mrs. Evangeline A. Rivera. Victorio Laika May M., daughter of Mr. Virgilio T. Victorio and Mrs. Mercedes M. Victorio. Congratulations! Grade 10A Malikdam Completers. Abarabar Jimboy B., son of Mr. Freddy E. Abarabar and Mrs. Leah B. Abarabar. Alaman Marlo L., son of Mrs. Lucy L. Alaman. Balagot Prince Edri M., son of Mr. Pacifico Q. Balagot and Mrs. Edna M. Balagot. Kabway Mark Kevin B., son of Mr. Maximo A. Kabway and Mrs. Ayla B. Kabway. Cancino Ryan P., son of Mr. Rodolfo G. Cancino and Miss Luz P. de la Peña. Cruz Gistoni G., son of Mr. Tony R. Cruz and Miss Sis Evangeline G. Cruz. Scanio Rainier F., son of Mr. Eduardo Z. Escaño and Mrs. Leticia F. Escaño. Fernandez Rafael S., son of Mr. Bayani M. Fernandez Jr. and Mrs. Delia S. Fernandez. Malikdam Jed Lowell B., son of Mr. Jose F. Malikdam and Mrs. Gemma B. Malikdam. Malikdam Philip T., son of Mr. Manola C. Malikdam and Mrs. Jenaline T. Malikdam. Mirador I.Z.E., son of Mr. Michael E. Mirador and Mrs. Rosella E. Mirador. Nadado Giovanni C., son of Mr. Johnny E. Nadado and Mrs. Veneranda C. Nadado. Oksan Cholo M., son of Mr. Joey C. Oksan and Mrs. Sally M. Oksan. Oksan Christopher Miko M., son of Mr. Roland C. Oksan and Mrs. Nena M. Oksan. Oksan John Paul C., son of Mr. Edwin C. Oksan and Mrs. Erlinda C. Oksan. Pakala George Arnold C., son of
of Mr. Armando O. Pacala and Mrs. Mary Ann C. Pacala. Palaganas Alvin B., son of Mr. Wilfredo D. Palaganas and Miss Vilma Buduan. Palma John Paul G., son of Mr. Jimmy L. Palma and Mrs. Vilma G. Palma. Palma Mark Stephen B., son of Mr. Eliseo M. Palma and Mrs. Jenna B. Palma. Panlilio Giselle C., son of Mr. Esteban A. Panlilio Jr. and Miss Myrna G. Campo. Ramos Romeo M., son of Mr. Terso C. Ramos and Miss Digna A. Maniclang. Rai Rai John Carl C., son of Mr. Marlon C. Rai Rai and Mrs. Daisy C. Rai Rai. Tayaban Denmark C., son of Mr. Daniel D. Tayaban and Mrs. Mila C. Tayaban. Tihada Warren C., son of Mr. Raydeno M. Tihada and Mrs. Marieta R. Castillo. Tenorio Ryan N., son of Mr. Rolando L. Tenorio and Mrs. Lina N. Tenorio. Yangao Michael Josh M., son of Mr. Mario G. Yangao and Mrs. Yolanda M. Yangao. Ballesteros Lizelle M., daughter of Mr. Larry T. Ballesteros and Miss Maggie S. Mislang. Buduan Princess S., daughter of Mr. Marlon C. Buduan and Mrs. Jocelyn S. Buduan. Karani Kaiselin A., daughter of Mrs. Losbiminda A. Karani. Katingil Yasmin S., daughter of Mr. Marvin M. Katingil and Mrs. Mary Joy S. Katingil. Fronda Nicole Ann R., daughter of Mr. Rene Boy M. Fronda and Mrs. Joanne R. Fronda. Garbo Elna M., daughter of Mr. Miguel E. Garbo and Mrs. Emma M. Garbo. Gisihan Melanie E., daughter of Mr. Alan M. Gisihan and Mrs. Michelle E. Gisihan. Malikdam Maria Teresa V., daughter of Mr. Gerald G. Malikdam and Mrs. Maricel V. Malikdam. Orduña Gugela May P., daughter of Mr. Jerome S. Orduña and Mrs. Vivian C. Orduña. Ballesteros Mary Rose E., daughter of Mr. Rodolfo A. Ballesteros Jr. and Mrs. Mayan E. Ballesteros. Verosel Jocelyn C., daughter of Mr. Theodora C. Verosel and Mrs. Delia C. Verosel. Zamora Daisy Joy, daughter of Miss Janet J. Zamora. Congratulations.
Grade 10, J. Palma Completers. Balausa John, son of Mr. Eduardo Balausa and Mrs. Maria Lida C. Balausa. Cantor Arnold B., son of Mr. Fernando A. Cantor and Mrs. Marie B. Cantor. Cantor Mamerto Jr. Y, son of Mr. Mamerto S. Cantor Sr. and Mrs. Virginia Y. Cantor. De la Cruz Danilo C., son of Mr. Loreto M. de la Cruz and Josephine C. de la Cruz. De la Cruz John B., son of Mr. Joel C. de la Cruz and Michelle B. de la Cruz. De la Cruz Jovet S., son of Mr. Juven M. de la Cruz and Mrs. Maricel S. de la Cruz. Dizon Vico C., son of Mr. Wilberto M. Dizon and Mrs. Priscilla C. Dizon. Fronda Dave Kervin S., son of Mr. Roderick Fronda and Mrs. Eliza S. Fronda. Gempeng Gilbert B., son of Mr. Eduardo E. Gempeng and Mrs. Hinya H. Buduan. Magno Justin Rain S., son of Mrs. Rosana S. Magno. Morales Ace V., son of Mr. Conrado C. Morales Jr. and Mrs. Jeneline V. Morales. Yanesa J., son of Mrs. Jeneline Yanesa. Aquino Shinamay M., daughter of Mr. Joseph M. Aquino and Mrs. Soledad M. Aquino. Blanco Rachel P., daughter of Mr. Ryan B. Blanco and Mrs. Loretta P. Blanco. Buduan Angelica C., daughter of Mr. Armando C. Buduan and Mrs. Kanay C. Buduan. Buduan Catherine B., daughter of Mr. William N. Buduan and Mrs. Annalyn B. Buduan. Buol Ronalyn D., daughter of Mr. Rodrigo B. Buol and Mrs. Letty D. Buol. Bugarin Chanelin L., daughter of Mrs. Eileen L. Bugarin. Kaligdan Marcel P., daughter of Mr. Rodolfo M. Kaligdan and Mrs. Imelda P. Kaligdan. Cantor Angelica K. T., daughter of Mr. Robert B. Cantor and Mrs. Resi T. Cantor. Cantor Eunice and daughter of Mr. Rodney B. Cantor and Mrs. Melissa A. Cantor. Cantor Rhea Teresa D., daughter of Mr. Rudy S. Cantor and Mrs. Teresita D. Cantor. Cruz Edlin P., daughter of Mr. Eduardo M. Cruz Jr. and Mrs. Jocelyn P. Cruz. Datanagan April M., daughter of Mr. Alberto C. Datanagan and Mrs. Leticia M. Datanagan. De Guzman Jessica Q., daughter of Mr. Florentino O. De Guzman and Mrs. Evangeline Q. De Guzman. Decano Danji E., daughter of Mr. Dante C. Decano and Mrs. Angels E. Decano. Decano Naden Im or M., daughter of Mr. Freddy C. Decano and Mrs. Elsie M. Dicano. Espora Hannah M., daughter of Mr. Jonathan E. Espora and Mrs. Sencha M. Espora. Lumibaw Rica Y., daughter of Mrs. Feli B. Yangao. Magallanes May Antoinette M., daughter of Mr. Antonio C. Magallanes and Mrs. Mary Ann M. Magallanes. Magno Jenny Joy, daughter of Mrs. Lerna C. Magno. Mendoza Marie Joy B., daughter of Mr. Roger Mendoza and Mrs. Sinaida B. Mendoza. Nieva Jolan X., daughter of Mr. John D. Nieva and Mrs. Priscilla S. Nieva. Pimentel Jessalyn E., daughter of Rolando M. Pimentel and Mrs. Jacqueline E. Pimentel. Pimentel Maria Teresa H., daughter of Mr. Dennis C. Pimentel and Mrs. Regina H. Pimentel. Ravancho Duran del N., daughter of Mr. Joseph B. Rabancho and Mrs. Adeline Rabancho. Reyes Angel C., daughter of Mr. Benji C. Reyes and Mrs. Marilu C. Reyes. Sinsuan Rubian D., daughter of Mr. Romeo Sinsuan and Mrs. Virginia Domingo. Soberano Rhea Irish S., daughter of Mr. Isidro Soberano and Mrs. Rebecca S. Soberano. Valdez Athena May R., daughter of Mrs. Lisel R. Valdez. Yangao Island Joy D.C., daughter of Mr. Loleto Yangao and Mrs. Ida D.C. Yangao. Congratulations, Grade 10 J. Palma.
Here are the grade 10 D. Sagon completers. To start with, Abad Kenneth Lex V., son of Mr. Alexander A. Abad and Mrs. Thelma V. Abad. Cano Christian E., son of Mr. Orlando P. Cano Sr. and Mrs. Imelda E. Cano. Cantor Renz A., son of Mr. Rene Z. Cantor and Mrs. Mariju E. Cantor. Canuel Denver John T., son of Mr. Domingo P. Canuel and Mrs. Sylvia T. Canuel. Kasipit Prince Wesley Val F., son of Mr. Sandoval B. Kasipit and Mrs. Mary Jane F. Kasipit. Depdepen John Angelo P., son of Mr. Angelito D. Depdepen and Mrs. Judith P. Depdepen. Nadado Dexter V., son of Mr. Robert S. Nadado and Mrs. Melanie V. Nadado. Nidia Erwin P., son of Mr. Erwin A. Nidia and Mrs. Analu P. Nidia. Padilla Godwin Howard O., son of Mr. Bernabe O. Padilla Jr. and Mrs. Lorena O. Padilla. Palma Jeric D., son of Mr. Joey S. Palma and Mrs. Lerma D. Palma. Palma Jerry B., son of Mr. Nick S. Palma and Mrs. Jocelyn B. Palma. Palma Jerwin B., son of Mr. Ruben U. Palma and Mrs. Wilma B. Palma. Palma Von Mark A., son of Mr. Virgilio A. Palma and Mrs. Nidi A. Palma. Paningbatan Tom Carlo A., son of Mr. Darlo T. Paningbatan and Mrs. Rhoda A. Paningbatan. Panlilio Denmark S., son of Mr. Teodorico D. Panlilio and Mrs. Alegria S. Panlilio. Paragas Patrick C., son of Mr. Ricky O. Paragas and Mrs. Josie C. Paragas. Paragas Vincent A., son of Mrs. Myra A. Paragas. Pimentel Kian C., son of Mr. Rodilio G. Pimentel and Mrs. Mena C. Pimentel. Pinto Dion Mark C., son of Mr. Boyet B. Pinto and Mrs. Mercy C. Pinto. Salamat Mark Anthony M., son of Mr. Rani C. Salamat and Mrs. Marisa M. Salamat. Salunoy Nathaniel P., son of Miss Digna T. Paningbatan. Sampaga Kurt Lawrence J., son of Mr. Norman N. Sampaga and Mrs. Belinda J. Sampaga. Santiago Daniel Brian C., son of Mr. Danilo R. Santiago and Mrs. Jobrela C. Santiago. Sawit Renz Mark T., son of Mr. Nelson Sawit and Mrs. Jory T. Sawit. Soriano Jr. Manuel B., son of Mr. Manuel D. Soriano Sr. and Mrs. Trinidad B. Soriano. Tenorio Gidiel Andy, son of Miss Edna G. Tenorio. Tenorio Ray D., son of Mr. Bonifacio G. Tenorio and Mrs. Remedios D. Tenorio. Vidal Aldrin A., son of Mr. Bernie P. Vidal and Mrs. Analisa A. Vidal. Yangao Robbie Boy P., son of Mr. Dominador S. Yangao and Mrs. Jenaline P. Yangao. Yumol Dexter P., son of Mr. Alan C. Yumol and Mrs. Ami P. Yumol. Zamora Yuri J., son of Mr. Arnel B. Garcia and Mrs. Janet J. Zamora. Abad Cassandra Shelo V., daughter of Mr. Alexander Abad and Mrs. Thelma V. Abad. Mandasig April K. B., daughter of Mr. Rogel S. Mandasig and Mrs. Lita B. Mandasig. Oris Micaela D., daughter of Mr. Mario T. Oris and Mrs. Rosie D. Oris. Panlilio Magdalena IVC, daughter of Mr. Joey V. Panlilio and Mrs. Josephine C. Panlilio. Panlilio Sunshine A, daughter of Mr. Rodolfo A. Panlilio and Mrs. Carmelita A. Panlilio. Reyes Ella P, daughter of Mr. Quintin P. Reyes Jr. Sanchez Develin May E, daughter of Mr. Eddie G. Sanchez and Mrs. Vilma E. Sanchez. Tijada Rhea Marie P, daughter of Mr. Marcelino M. Tijada and Mrs. Mary Jane P. Tijada. Verano Juliana M, daughter of Mr. Ronaldo V. Verano and Mrs. Rosana M. Verano. Congratulations!
Here are the grade 10 J. Tenoria completers. To start with, Abelias Agustin T, son of Mr. Ronnie C. Abelias and Mrs. Dorisa T. Abelias. Agbisit Daniel P, son of Mr. Donnie A. Agbisit and Mrs. Raquel P. Agbisit. Bautista Jesse J, brother of Mrs. Jennifer B. Kagiwa. Bauyan John Joseph M, son of Mr. Josie D. Bauyan and Mrs. Mercy M. Bauyan. Bulawan Ariel P, son of Mrs. Gloria P. Bulawan. Cruz Mark Patrick P, son of Mr. Peter R. Cruz and Mrs. Mercedes P. Cruz. De la Cruz John Mark E, son of Mr. John A. De la Cruz and Mrs. Merly E. De la Cruz. De la Peña Daniel P, son of Mr. Henry De La Peña. Estrada Sandy M, son of Mr. Santi C. Estrada and Mrs. Sandra M. Estrada. Fernandez Carlo R, son of Mr. Carlos I. Fernandez and Mrs. Josephine R. Fernandez. Gamboa Kim B, son of Mr. Rodrigo B. Gamboa and Mrs. Benilda Gamboa. Garcia Lawrence Q, son of Mr. Warlito U. Garcia Sr. and Mrs. Julieta Q. Garcia. Harden Humphrey M, son of Mr. Johnny S. Harden and Mrs. Lisa M. Harden. Laganas Paulo Jr. E, son of Mr. Paulo Sr. C. Laganas and Mrs. Jebel E. Laganas. Manaklang E.J. P, son of Mr. Ronaldo H. Manaklang and Mrs. Susana P. Manaklang. Manyuska Mark Vince G, son of Mr. Vincent Manyuska and Mrs. Maribel G. Manyuska. Malinaw Mark Lester M, grandson of Mrs. Margarita M. Malinaw. Rubio Christian Derrick C, son of Mrs. Marisa C. Rubio. Vita Mark Clark V, son of Mr. Arturo C. Vita and Mrs. Gina P. Vita.
Abarabar Carol Q, daughter of Mr. Lino M. Abarabar and Mrs. Rosemary Q. Abarabar. Abarabar Janeline B, daughter of Mr. Loreto M. Abarabar and Mrs. Teresa B. Abarabar. Calderon Caroline T, daughter of Mr. Delphine S. Calderon and Mrs. Gemma T. Calderon. De Oro Lysami M, daughter of Mr. Dionisio A. De Oro and Mrs. Edlin M. De Oro. De la Cruz Laicami C, daughter of Mr. Romeo M. De la Cruz and Mrs. Marilu C. De la Cruz. De los Santos Vinice T, daughter of Mr. Dante C. De los Santos and Mrs. Loida T. De los Santos. Estrada Eliza T, daughter of Mr. Alex V. Estrada and Mrs. Nancy T. Estrada. Fernandez Mary Joy R, daughter of Mr. Jose C. Fernandez and Mrs. Mirasol R. Fernandez. Gabitan Angelica G, daughter of Mr. Arnaez P. Gabitan and Mrs. Remedios G. Gabitan. Manaklang Rachel C, daughter of Mr. Romulo H. Manaklang. Mangunay Lizelle P, daughter of Mr. Rolando Kyo Mangunay and Mrs. Arlene P. Mangunay. Auxilios Jaren May G, daughter of Mr. Rene M. Auxilios and Mrs. Jacqueline G. Auxilios. Queroda Liza S, daughter of Mr. Domingo P. Queroda and Mrs. Marita S. Queroda. Ripalda Mary Grace P, daughter of Mrs. Nora P. Ripalda. Ripalda Mary Joy P, daughter of Mrs. Nora P. Ripalda. Rosarito Nadine P, daughter of Mr. Danilo M. Rosarito and Mrs. Robelisa P. Rosarito. Siran Erich P, daughter of Mr. Marvin T. Siran and Mrs. Gay Aimee R. Siran. Tapiceria Mary Joy P, daughter of Mr. Maximo P. Tapiceria and Mrs. Emilita P. Tapiceria. Vidal Melody J, daughter of Mr. Cipriano E. Vidal and Mrs. Monica J. Vidal.
Here are the Grayton J. Jacinto completers. Vera Brixter C, son of Mr. Hernando de Vera and Mrs. Lorna C. de Vera. De Vera Eugel D, son of Mr. Ernesto V. de Vera and Mrs. Juliet D. de Vera. De Vera Jolo Briggs V, son of Mr. Brandy M. de Vera and Mrs. Marivic V. de Vera. De Vera Raymond C, the son of Mr. Ernesto de Vera and Mrs. Merla C. de Vera. De Vera Richard C, the son of Mr. Ernesto de Vera and Mrs. Merla C. de Vera. De Vera Wright M, son of Mr. Bernardo M. de Vera Jr. and Mrs. Sonia M. De Vera. De Vera Roel C., son of Mr. Robin De Vera and Mrs. Wilma C. De Vera. Jolata Michael B., son of Mr. Arnel V. Jolata and Mrs. Maria Jingle B. Jolata. Estrada Brandon S., son of Mr. John Estrada and Mrs. Editha S. Estrada. Grado Winston R., son of Mr. Enrico F. Grado and Mrs. Merlita R. Grado. Lazaro Michael June M., son of Mr. Armando Lazaro and Mrs. Susan M. Lazaro. Maralit Francis H., son of Mr. Philip Maralit and Mrs. Nena H. Maralit. Mislang Mark Lawrence T., son of Mr. Muhammad Mislang and Mrs. Leonarda T. Mislang. Mustaho Ramil E., son of Mr. Ramon P. Mustaho and Mrs. Michelle E. Mustaho. Patungan Justin Luis S., son of Mr. Chison V. Patungan and Mrs. Jinky S. Patungan. Predas Denmark M., son of Mrs. Margie M. Predas. Season Rojas Ray V., son of Mr. Rod Season Rojas and Mrs. Yolanda V. Season Rojas. Sullivan Janjan B., son of Mr. Romeo Z. Sullivan and Mrs. Editha B. Sullivan. C. Kenneth L., son of Mr. Renato T. C. and Mrs. Sarah L. C. Torio Gerald P., son of Mr. Daniel Torio and Mrs. Mirna P. Torio. Valenton Dino V., son of Mr. Bienvenido Valenton and Mrs. Gloria V. Valenton. Valenton Norman G., son of Mr. Nestor M. Valenton and Mrs. Nora G. Valenton. Vicente Jimboy V., son of Mr. Virgilio Vicente and Mrs. Nancy V. Vicente. Victorio Delfin Jr. P., son of Mr. Delfin V. Victorio Sr. and Mrs. Gina P. Victorio. Victorio Gilbert T., son of Mr. Guillermo Victorio Jr. and Mrs. Mary Ann T. Victorio. Vinoya Carlos J. Z., son of Mr. Dindo V. Vinoya and Mrs. Caroline Z. Vinoya. Arcega Cristina P., daughter of Mr. Michael S. Arcega and Mrs. Agustina P. Arcega. De la Cruz Jacel R., daughter of Mr. Oscar A. De la Cruz and Mrs. Mirna R. De la Cruz. Garbo Jeneline L., daughter of Mr. Juanito P. Garbo and Mrs. Medellin L. Garbo. Grado Mary, daughter of Mrs. Merlin M. Grado. Lazaro Sheila May L., daughter of Mr. Dominador V. Lazaro and Mrs. Tessie L. Lazaro. Kimora Monica D., daughter of Mr. Esperidion M. Kimora and Mrs. Sylvia D. Kimora. Realon Rejoice M., daughter of Mr. Joel R. Realon and Mrs. Rebecca M. Realon. Rosario Generosa L., daughter of Mr. Pedro S. Rosario and Mrs. Violeta L. Rosario. Sanchez Ronaldin, daughter of Mr. Ruben Victorio and Mrs. Elena Sanchez. Soriano Michelle B., daughter of Mr. Michael Y. Soriano and Mrs. Maricris B. Soriano. Victorio Jolan M., daughter of Mr. Joseph Victorio and Mrs. Baby Jean M. Victorio. Victorio Sara R., daughter of Mr. Andres L. Victorio and Mrs. Florenda R. Victorio. Villanueva Jamaica B., daughter of Mr. Mario Villanueva and Mrs. Luz V. Villanueva. Vinoya Angeline G., daughter of Mrs. Elma Vinoya. Vinoya Maricar D., daughter of Mr. Alvin G. Vinoya and Mrs. Maricel D. Vinoya. Congratulations!
Grade 10A Arevalo Computers. Albalos Arnel Jack R., son of Mr. Ariel N. Albalos and Mrs. Jackie R. Albalos. Concepcion Rainier P., son of Mr. Danilo S. Concepcion and Mrs. Ida P. Concepcion. Cruz Mark Oliver D., son of Mr. Joy S. Cruz and Mrs. Michelle D. Cruz. Quizon Romel L., son of Mr. Romulo Y. Quizon Jr. and Mrs. Mariette L. Quizon. De Guzman Christian S., son of Mr. William A. De Guzman and Mrs. Loida S. De Guzman. De Leon Mark Allen T., son of Mr. Alberto E. De Leon and Mrs. Marlene T. De Leon. Estrada Joros V., son of Mr. Jason C. Estrada and Mrs. Marilu V. Estrada. Gonzaga Lex M., son of Mr. Richel A. Gonzaga and Mrs. Lani M. Gonzaga. Harabata Jade Lawrence V., son of Mr. Danny G. Harabata and Mrs. Maricel V. Harabata. Linus Romark R., son of Mr. Marlon C. Linus and Mrs. Rodora R. Linus. Lucero James Patrick, son of Miss Mary Ann O. Lucero. Mondacruz Edmond R., son of Mr. Eddie P. Mondacruz and Mrs. Melly R. Mondacruz. Orduña Rizwan D., son of Mr. Reynaldo F. Orduña and Mrs. Analisa D. Orduña. Sambulanay Julius M., son of Mr. Nestor B. Sambulanay and Mrs. Rona M. Sambulanay.
Toledo Wesley B., son of Mr. Leo R. Toledo and Mrs. Josephine B. Toledo. Valianta Chester V., son of Mr. Christopher M. Valianta and Mrs. Erlinda V. Valianta. Zuazola Jonathan M., son of Mr. Junard L. Zuazola and Mrs. Lenny M. Zuazola. Baterna April Rose B., daughter of Mr. Christopher O. Baterna and Mrs. Rose B. Baterna. Bugarin Janelle M., daughter of Mr. Rodian C. Bugarin and Mrs. Ella M. Bugarin. Cabuay Janine M., daughter of Mr. Ronilo D. Cabuay and Mrs. Maricel M. Cabuay. Dador Lica C., daughter of Mrs. Maria V. Salaksakan. De Guzman Hennessy G., daughter of Mr. Domingo I. De Guzman and Mrs. Alma G. De Guzman. De la Cruz Kimberly Joy D., daughter of Mr. Kenny N. De la Cruz and Mrs. Edralyn D. De la Cruz. De Los Santos Lady Vixen B., daughter of Mr. Rogelio S. De Los Santos and Mrs. Jessa V. De Los Santos. Diaz Janeline F., daughter of Mr. James C. Diaz and Mrs. Mercedes F. Diaz. Galera Jezabel F., daughter of Mr. Jesus L. Galera Jr. and Mrs. Elizabeth F. Galera. Grado Angelica G., daughter of Mr. Arnold M. Grado and Mrs. Corazon G. Grado. Lianilio Megan J., daughter of Mr. Nelson C. Lianilio and Mrs. Myrna J. Lianilio. Macaraeg Christine T., daughter of Mr. Marvin B. Macaraeg and Mrs. Annalyn T. Macaraeg. Paulo Krisha Angelica S., daughter of Mr. Manny O. Paulo and Mrs. Mylene S. Paulo. Perez Cyril M., daughter of Mr. Godfrey B. Perez and Mrs. Marites M. Perez. Perias Judy Ann L., daughter of Mr. Johnny F. Perias and Mrs. Josephine L. Perias. Prado E.G. Sabrina D., daughter of Mr. Elmer R. Prado and Mrs. Mary Grace D. Prado. Kides Jezabel P., daughter of Mr. Orlando F. Kides and Mrs. Amelita P. Kides. Rosario Angelica O., daughter of Mr. Jojo P. Rosario and Mrs. Alma O. Rosario. Rosario Marjorie O., daughter of Mr. Jojo P. Rosario and Mrs. Alma O. Rosario. Salamat Jade S., daughter of Mr. Dennis C. Salamat and Mrs. Janet S. Salamat. Sareno Maria Nicole V., daughter of Mr. Nandi R. Sareno and Mrs. Maricel V. Sareno. Tangonan Jasmine B., daughter of Mr. Wilson P. Tangonan and Mrs. Lizelle B. Tangonan. Tanige Maria Clarence R., daughter of Mr. Rolando F. Tanige and Mrs. Betty R. Tanige. Vicente Sofia Isabel V., daughter of Mr. Terso M. Vicente and Mrs. Alma V. Vicente. Thank you and congratulations.
Grade 10 E. Estrella completers. Avalos Christian James S., son of Mr. Manolo M. Avalos and Mrs. Leticia S. Avalos. Abarcar Dexter E., son of Mr. David L. Abarcar and Mrs. Melly E. Abarcar. Bautista John Lloyd O., son of Mr. Federico C. Bautista and Mrs. Josefina O. Bautista. Karani Christian A., son of Mr. Arnel E. Karani and Mrs. Luzviminda A. Karani. Castro Christopher C., son of Mr. Esteban L. Castro and Mrs. Clarissa C. Castro. De Luna Webster, son of Miss Marilu D. Tomenes. De la Cruz Jeric V., son of Mr. Islao L. de la Cruz and Mrs. Mary Jean V. de la Cruz. De la Cruz King Gerald Vincent M., son of Mr. Gerardo B. de la Cruz and Mrs. Veronica M. de la Cruz. Diaz Mark Joshua C., son of Mr. Fidel G. Diaz and Mrs. Jill C. Corpus Diaz. Esguerra Matthew P., son of Mr. Johnny A. Esguerra and Mrs. Marites P. Esguerra. Esguerra Romel C., son of Mr. Rogelio A. Esguerra and Mrs. Zenaida C. Esguerra. Florendo Mark Vincent C., son of Mr. Santiago G. Florendo and Mrs. Maribel C. Florendo. Galia Darrell J. B., son of Mr. Dominador T. Galia Jr. and Mrs. Marisa B. Galia. Galia Kenneth Jan B., son of Mr. Dominador T. Galia Jr. and Mrs. Marisa B. Galia. Macaraag Jaden Bryson C., son of Mr. John B. Macaraag and Mrs. Elsa C. Macaraag. Manuel Genesis S., son of Mr. Delphine R. Manuel and Mrs. Helen Grace S. Manuel. Mejia Aaron M., son of Mr. Bonifacio C. Mejia and Mrs. Anna M. Mejia. Minya Ramil C., son of Mrs. Leslie Ann M. De Quintos. Orduña Yuri Charles S., son of Mr. Eugene S. Orduña and Mrs. Rhea S. Orduña. Orduña John Rich F., son of Mr. Oliver F. Orduña and Mrs. Nida F. Orduña. Ramos John Brian D., son of Mr. Rogelio S. Ramos and Mrs. Josie D. Ramos. Resgoño Kevin A., son of Mr. Reynald O. Cansino and Miss Marites A. Resgoño.
Van Luan Warren B., son of Mr. Jerry P. Van Luan and Mrs. Priscilla B. Van Luan. Zaratan Jeron M., son of Mr. Ronnie B. Zaratan and Mrs. Belinda M. Zaratan. Bernardo Rosemary S., daughter of Mr. Rolando D. Bernardo and Mrs. Mercedes S. Bernardo. Concepcion Ariana J., daughter of Mr. Armando S. Concepcion and Mrs. Maria Gina J. Concepcion. Corpus Jaira May Jen V., daughter of Mr. Jerome G. Corpus and Mrs. Jennifer V. Corpus. Dakiwag Danica D., daughter of Mr. Danilo D. Dakiwag and Mrs. Rosalina D. Dakiwag. De Quintos Catherine R., daughter of Mr. Romeo S. De Quintos and Mrs. Merlin R. De Quintos. De la Cruz Angelica C., daughter of Mr. Jose L. De la Cruz and Mrs. Myrna C. De la Cruz. Fulgar Sedi R., daughter of Mr. Eduardo F. Fulgar and Mrs. Resi R. Fulgar. Mendoza Karen B., daughter of Mr. Roger C. Mendoza and Mrs. Zenaida B. Mendoza. Mercado Arisha Edeline B., daughter of Mr. Arturo S. Mercado and Mrs. Melanie B. Mercado. Mercado Colleen M., daughter of Mr. Ronald S. Mercado and Mrs. Marilu M. Mercado. Papa Joy G., daughter of Mr. Joel D. Papa and Mrs. Joanna G. Papa. Paragas Rhea S., daughter of Mr. Rolly M. Paragas and Mrs. Lolita S. Paragas. Prado Igitonet D., daughter of Mr. Elmer R. Prado and Mrs. Mary Grace D. Prado. Punzalan Tinalin T., daughter of Mr. Valentin O. Punzalan and Mrs. Jocelyn T. Ponsalan. Sarmiento Vanessa E., daughter of Mr. Salvador G. Sarmiento and Mrs. Gemma E. Sarmiento. Season Jasmine Joy B., daughter of Mr. Julius A. Season and Mrs. Janet B. Season. Tan Pinky F., guardian, Madame Nelida Berin. Congratulations.
Once again, you are watching the second virtual completion rites of the Bugallon Integrated School Junior High School Department.
Here are the grade 10
Here are the grade 10 K Nagado computers. Cancino Gerald P., son of Mr. Jerry N. Cancino and Mrs. Maria Teresa B. Cancino. Cervantes John Lester A., son of Mr. Santiago Cervantes and Mrs. Milagros Cervantes. De la Cruz Michael G., son of Mr. Roberto F. de la Cruz and Mrs. Geraldine G. de la Cruz. Fabros Axeros C., son of Mr. Richard Fabros and Mrs. Carmelita Fabros. Daniel Reyes Galvez, son of Mr. Danilo P. Galvez and Mrs. Rhoda S. Galvez. Galimberao Ken T., son of Mr. Victor Garimberao Jr. and Mrs. Ross Garimberao. Magno Cedric N., son of Mr. Benito R. Magno and Mrs. Melanie Magno. Malupig Albert S., son of Mr. Fernando M. Malupig and Mrs. Annalisa Malupig. Malupig Angelo S., son of Mr. Fernando M. Malupig and Mrs. Annalisa Malupig. Navato Kevin R. P., son of Mr. Jesus O. Navato and Mrs. Jacqueline P. Navato. Pangilinan Rainier J., son of Mr. Ronaldo Pangilinan and Mrs. Aritex Pangilinan. Patuman Ivan P., son of Mr. Lito C. Patuman and Mrs. Helen Patuman. Pereras Marjan P., son of Mr. Lord A. Pereras and Mrs. Alma Pereras. Reyes P., son of Mr. I. T. Reyes and Mrs. Elda Mar de la Cruz. Cesar Jerome S., son of Mrs. Lourdes Cesar. Susie Harrison I., son of Mr. Roberto M. Susie and Mrs. Ruby I. Susie. Supangan Ichboy G., son of Mr. Edward Supangan and Mrs. Jenny C. Cortez. Taloban Gregorio Jr. L., son of Mr. Gregorio Taloban Sr. and Mrs. Rosita C. Taloban. Ballesteros Nico A., son of Mrs. Stefania A. Ballesteros. Fairness Alvin A., son of Mr. Almario A. Fairness and Mrs. Lorna A. Fairness. Duray Kenneth E., son of Mrs. Pearl E. Duray. Marcelia Carlin A., daughter of Mr. Joel Marcelia and Mrs. Rosalie Marcelia. Cancino Jeremy D., daughter of Mr. Jerry N. Cancino and Mrs. Maria Teresa D. Cancino. Castro Marie M., daughter of Mr. Agustino Castro and Mrs. Carol Castro. Guzman Daniela O., daughter of Mr. Danilo M. Martiso and Mrs. Rebecca Martiso. Guzman Loisa C., daughter of Mr. Alex C. Guzman and Mrs. Adelia Guzman. Guzman Ishii, daughter of Mrs. MJ Vicente. De la Cruz, daughter of Mr. John de la Cruz and Mrs. Rita P. de la Cruz. Rhonda Georgina L., daughter of Mr. Francisco B. Perotta and Mrs. Marie F. Perotta. Jota Andrushin, daughter of Mr. Adonis B. Jota and Mrs. Alma B. Jota Micaela C., daughter of Mr. Armand Jota and Mrs. Marie Bashi. Lozano Joanna Marie C., daughter of Mr. Jesse Lozano and Mrs. Maricel C. Lozano. Mendoza Angel L., daughter of Mr. Angelito Mendoza and Mrs. Milda Mendoza. Nawato Mary Ann Bobby, daughter of Mrs. Mercedes Navarro. Auxilios Jonaline M., daughter of Mr. Salvador M. Auxilios and Mrs. Jordan Auxilios. Paganos Ana Lucy, daughter of Mr. Clemente Paganos and Mrs. Shirley Paganos. Pantanosa Danica, daughter of Mr. Danilo Pantanosa and Mrs. Miriam E. Pantanosa. Pantanosa Eugene A., daughter of Mr. Genaro C. Pantanosa and Mrs. Dorothy A. Pantanosa. Quijado Maria Colea B., daughter of Mr. Calvin B. and Mrs. Mary Ann B. Quijado. Ramacho Oberme C., daughter of Mrs. Mirna Castro. Valenton Angeline L., daughter of Mr. Anselmo Valenton and Mrs. Luisa L. Valenton. Once again, congratulations, students, and salute to the ever supportive and proud parents.
Finishing this school year with flying colors amidst the pandemic and the shift to distance learning is truly a remarkable and admirable achievement. To represent the awardees this morning, let us welcome Ms. Janine E. Sorio with high honors for her message.
To our very dedicated principal, Dr. Jonathan R. Estrada, our hardworking head teacher, Dr. Jeffrey C. Diaz, our loving and compassionate Creighton advisors and teachers, fellow students, friends, ladies and gentlemen, a blessed day to everyone. Today marks a very significant day in our lives as we all gathered here to witness the fruit of our labor and hard work. I just want to take this opportunity to thank every one of you who made this precious moment possible for us, and to tell with courage to you, my fellow students, that we made it. Today, having this part of our high school life is a major step in the journey of our lives that still lies ahead, and it should be appreciated. Despite the trials we face in our lives brought by this COVID-19 pandemic, we are still able to study through modules, and no matter how hard it is, we have successfully overcome it. And thanks to Almighty God for giving us guidance and wisdom all the way. And now, we're about to step up from high school. Yes, despite the trials we face, how difficult and challenging our situation is, we did overcome it. Now, I'd like to express my appreciation to all our parents and guardians, our friends, and our dear teachers for their support, guidance, and undying love. Thank you so much to our loving parents who are always there to support and love us, especially to my mother. She may not be wealthy, but she always finds a way to give our needs. Ma, thank you for all the sacrifices and efforts you've given to us. I will always be grateful for that. I love you so much, Ma. Now, and also to my elder brother, thank you for helping Mom in our daily expenses and for providing our needs or even wants. I truly appreciate your efforts, Kuya. Second, to my close friends who are always there to listen to my problems, to my corny jokes. Because of you, my high school life became happy. I won't tell anymore your names. You already know who you are, and you will always have a special place in my heart. To our dear teachers and advisors, thank you for all your sacrifices and efforts, especially to our advisor, Ma'am Bernadette Mangasi. Yes, we are not able to learn face to face, but we are able to feel your support, guidance, and your love for us through your chats and messages. In behalf of my FLB Mangasi class, thank you so much, Mom. We won't forget you as we endeavor to reach our dreams. To our dear principal, Dr. Jonathan R. Estrada, thank you for rendering your whole heart in making our school Tatak the best. As we see your efforts and sacrifices, and for taking the lead in providing us quality education. Through our teachers, in our Facebook page, and your posts, we can't help but say, sayang, walang face-to-face class. Hindi po namin kayo personal na mapapasalamatan, sir. But rest assured that your efforts are worthy to be recognized and valued, Sir Jonathan. To you, Dr. Geoffrey C. Diaz, we miss your presence and smile as we maintain our school's cleanliness. Think you taught us to be well-disciplined and to always respect our teachers. Thank you once again, Sir Diaz. Lastly, thank you to our Almighty God for giving us guidance and protection all throughout our grade 10 journey. So once again, to my fellow students, congratulations, we did it. Our hard work and sleepless nights pays off. As we move forward to our journey, let me remind you that life is your story, and the journey ahead of you is the adventure ahead of you is the journey to fulfill your purpose and potential. Again, thank you and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Janine, for those inspiring words. And once again, congratulations to you and to all the learners who have succeeded and completed this academic year. Today is indeed a memorable time and a day to celebrate your victories and accomplishments. And this is made possible by the unwavering love and support of your friends, families, and guardians and parents. So at this point, let's give our students some moment to express their appreciation to their beloved parents and guardians through the thank you song, Awit ng Anak para sa Magulang, composed and written by Ernie Magtulo and Alson S. Montalvo.
Sige lang muna, Des.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching the second virtual completion rides of Bugallon Integrated School Junior High School Department.
Nooy munting batang inaakay, inaalayan bawat paghakbang.
Your time to approach your parents and your guardians and express your appreciation for their support. And also, we'd like to thank everyone for staying with us, for watching, and for also helping us throughout the school year 2021. This year have been very challenging to all of us, but without everyone's cooperation, will not be able to finish this school year with flying colors. Once again, thank you so much, parents, to the learners, other stakeholders, of course, the teachers of the Bugallon Grade School, from the elementary, high school, and to the senior high school. And of course, special thanks and mention to our very hardworking school head, Dr. Jonathan Estrada, for leading us in this very challenging journey.
Nooy munting batang inaakay, isip ko'y nakatanim sa isang bahay ay padarama ko'y walang katumbas niyong pag-ibig. Aking mga anak ay akayin din. Pag lumuluhay patatahanin. Babantayan kung may sakit, dadampian ng nunang halik. At kapag gabi ay malamig, yayakapin din ng mahigpit. Ipapanalangin at kukumutan ng pag-ibig. Ngayong ay aalalayan at akaintindi. Pag lumuluhay patatahanin. Babantayan kung may sakit, dadampian ng nunang halik. At kapag gabi ay malamig, yayakapin din ng mahigpit. Ipapanalangin at kukumutan ng pag-ibig. Wala kayong katumbas, wala kayong kabantay. Mahal kong tatay, mahal kong nanay. Salamat po.
Natuto na si Dean.
I once read that there is no real ending. It's just a place where you stop the story. Friends, we have come to the conclusion of today's event. To give a short message to the completers and to everyone tuned in right now, and to extend this word of thanks to everyone, let us welcome with a resounding applause our head teacher, Dr. Joffrey C. Diaz.
School year 2020-2021 was an easy journey for all of us. It was full of good times and bad times. We started with so many uncertainties and encountered challenges along the way. We took it as an opportunity to show our strength, determination, passion, and enthusiasm towards achieving our common goal. To the parents, I salute you for your unwavering pursuit of education of your children. Despite all the hardship, you have shown that everything is possible. To you, my dear students, my heartfelt congratulations. Your hard work paid off and you are ready to take another step in your life. To all the teachers of Bugallon Integrated School, accept my gratitude for a job well done. Thank you for inspiring and motivating your students in these times. Your patience and dedication played a pivotal role in their lives. May you all continue to guide our younger generation and keep inspiring them. Let us all keep moving forward and never stop providing quality education to all learners at all times. Mabuhay and more power to everyone.
We have come to the end of today's event. Thus, may I express acknowledgement To everyone who worked hard for making this event truly remarkable in one way or another. As Colin Powell once said, a dream does not become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work. Congratulations everyone and stay safe always. Remember, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Mabuhay and stay safe everyone.
School year 20.
Audio Jungle.
Uy, naka-live yun. Naka-live yun.